Okay, so we want to get started now. Uh, the purpose of this, is to give everybody kind of the same center point on teaching strategies. Many of you have a lot of experience already doing some teaching. Some of you are still kind of new to it, but hopefully, when you're given you're in the physics help center, and you can even apply this in your lab activities from time to time. Having these kind of techniques and tools are handy to help your students overcome whatever understanding that they're facing, any obstacles to understanding that they may be facing. These are some tested strategies that can help the students come away from the physics help center feeling more confident, more uh, comfortable with the material that they're working with, and with a more likely chance that they'll come back and get more assistance as the semester goes on. So these are basically the topics that we'll be going through here over the next, say, 45-ish minutes or so. Basics of communication, developing your communication skills, the difference between teaching and tutoring, universal problem solving, checking your understanding with the student. Sometimes you have to change approach, and ways to approach that or to delve into that. The takeaway: do they have new or renewed confidence in what they're doing before they leave the study session or tutoring session? One-on-one role playing will take a couple minutes. You know, these always a little bit silly, but they are an effective opportunity to just kind of throw a couple things out in a, let's say, a safe space. And then for the toughest challenges, the students who just aren't there and not getting it or not coming away where we want them to be. So let's get started. The thing about this document that you have there, the first few pages, the cartoon there, is kind of nails the importance of effective communication. You see, as it goes, the responses of the group are synonymous, but different responses because they come from the individual's different background, different experiences, and their personal preferences and their own communication. Your challenge as a tutor, and I'm using the word tutor because Physics Help Center is effectively a tutoring session, whereas compared to in the lab, you are an instructor, and in the lecture, they're being taught through a more conventional teaching approach. So the importance of being able to know how you communicate and being able to know or recognize how your students communicate are an important thing. We're not going to do it right now, but you have this packet, and it would be worthwhile to take a few minutes and go through these mini assessments and get an idea of where you stand on how you communicate. It's important to know there's not necessarily bad communicators. They're just ineffective for some reasons. You can be an excellent teacher and still have a student that just is not understanding you, and it's just because your delivery and their reception styles are mismatched at that time. So we'll talk about ways to go about that. The next page on here is got blocks of listening. I've got a photo in there that I downloaded. They kind of cover the same things. A lot of problems with effective communication is the person who's listening spends a lot more time preparing to talk than they are listening to what they're being told. Countless examples you might see on, on television or even in your own experience where, and one, I guess you might say one particular example would be in an argument. The biggest challenge during an argument is not that there's an issue, but neither side is really listening to the other. They're hearing and responding and planning to respond. And so it takes a while before that shakes out and communication resumes flowing effectively. So the first thing to think about is hearing versus listening. Hearing is a natural biological process. It's physical. You can hear something all kinds of times. But listening is an intellectual, it's a conscientious activity. You're intentionally receiving and processing the information that you're being given. A lot of students struggle because they are trying to listen, but maybe they are they have ineffective techniques to take in what they're trying to process, and that's something that we've seen our students run into, is that they're trying, but maybe they're not equipped, or maybe the instructor is not as effectively equipped to deliver that information in a way that works with their approach. Which takes us to talking versus explaining. We know, we can all probably think about an example of folks who talk, but they don't really say anything. Nothing comes out that adds to the conversation or adds to your understanding of what you're going about doing. So it's important to be able to be conscientious about the difference between the stuff that you're saying and the stuff that you're explaining when you're talking to your students. Knowing your audience is a very big factor. You will not explain to a 5-year-old the same thing that you explain to your professor when you're writing your homework assignments. They're just very vastly different levels of understanding, and sometimes we can kind of get caught as instructors. We can get caught in a circle where we're interested in what we're talking about, and we're interested in this particular problem or this particular concept, and we start talking about it at a level that's a bit above where the student's ready to take in. And that can lead to frustration because, that's when they stop listening. They can't listen. There's nothing that they can do with what we're saying. So it's important to keep in mind when you're talking and you're doing your explaining that you are conscientious about what they're prepared to take in. Calvin Hobbes joke, that's pretty good. Conversations are contests. So one thing that I found out, and I came up in a customer service background, working in restaurants, working on phone call centers while I was going through college. And one thing that we were taught, I can help you with that. And it's more than just a phrase, more than just a catchphrase. Saying I can help you with that is empowering to you. And for the student, it's encouraging and confidence building. It lets them know that they're going to get what they need out of the conversation when they come to see you. So making the statement, I can help you with that, or some variation therein, that's a confidence builder, and it builds immediate rapport with your student and gives them confidence that when we get done with this, I'm going to have the understanding I need, and I'll be encouraged to come back and do it again. One thing that we really want to start working towards is having return students. We did a short survey at the end of last term. It was not well timed, and so I only got 10 respondents. We're going to redo that more effectively at midterm, but just kind of make sure that the students are getting what they need out of the Physics Help Center. But one thing that they had was, one of the questions was, those of you who did go to the Physics Help Center, did you get the help that you needed? And nobody said, yes, it was very effective. And now, again, we're talking about 10 respondents, but we want to make sure that the students come away with a positive experience. And starting that positive experience can begin with, I can help you with that, and then deploying these various teaching techniques and tutoring styles. Let's see here. One thing to know is that teaching and tutoring are not exactly the same thing. They're effectively the same thing in a lot of ways, but teaching is more of a one-way delivery, one-way reception in the street. Teachers get up there and they deliver new information and introduce concepts, they'll do demonstrate examples, the students will receive this, and then they begin processing as best they can. But usually your teaching is going to be in a one-to-multiple relationship, so it's very hard to build effective one-on-one relationships with the students. And that leaves the students in a place where they say, okay, there's the instructor, and they'll go and talk to the instructor one-on-one. But again, that one-on-one relationship is a little bit more, a little bit less solid. Whereas during tutoring, the concepts have generally already been explained and exposed, and the student is now struggling with making use of that concept. So one of the first things that a tutor does is help identify the source of the struggles. that is not necessarily them coming in and you saying, well, it looks like your problem is this, let's do some practice problems. A lot of times it can be more effective to say, walk me through where you got stuck. And they get to that point and you get a better understanding. The student has been working this problem for several minutes or so, or half an hour, whatever the case, and they've just tried, got stuck. They're more familiar with the problem going in and what they've done to help than you are, immediately speaking. And so letting them have the floor and letting them talk it out can give you a lot of insight and information about how to help them overcome it. More often than not, you're guiding problem solving rather than introducing concepts, but you can introduce some new concepts, and sometimes you can kind of circle around and bring in some peripheral concepts and teaching that goes along with what you're talking about. That can help, but it's not the central point. Teachers do a measure of checking understanding, but tutors are a little more point-by-point checking understanding, be able to make sure that the students are perceived through whatever example or problem that you're working out, so that they can come away with a successful experience. So teaching deals with concepts through exposition, whereas tutoring concepts through application. As we've got up on the board, it's in the textbooks, and the frustrating thing to me, I guess you might say, is that a lot of textbooks they say exactly that step list, but they start out usually at step 3. They pick out the formulas and apply a concept. So one thing that can help students is taking them away. One of the biggest challenges that they have with problem solving is, what do we do first? And the benefit of following these steps is it takes that mystery out of it. When they draw the picture and they write the knowns and unknowns, in the course of the process, to become more familiar with the situation, what the problem is, what is being asked of them to solve. So just by taking these 2 steps, it takes that mystery out, because by that point, they have a bit of a roadmap on how to, a roadmap on how to proceed with applying a concept, picking a formula, writing it down, and then they feel like, okay, it's a matter of turning the crank at this point, working the problem to a solution. So encouraging your students to go through this process on every problem. It does 2 things. It takes away the mystery for the individual problem, and it begins to take away the mystery for every problem that they work. Plus, when is it really important? During a test. They want to be able to sit down at the exam and know that they can solve these problems and build that confidence through homework and problem solving with practice. They sit down and now they're following these procedures trained in them. It's ingrained, and so the test is now a matter of working through all the problems as opposed to approaching 20 mysteries and getting done in an hour. So big important for the students, but it also helps. Remember, what do students do? They do what we do. If you write something up on the board, 50% or more are going to write down what you just wrote down. So make sure that when you're demonstrating a problem or a concept, that you follow this process as well. I've many a time been helping students out, and we'll get into the rhythm of the study session or whatever, and then I'll get to a problem and I'll just kind of jump straight to the formula, and we start going, and we get stuck, and I say, you know what, we got this answer wrong because I didn't follow the process that I keep telling you guys to follow. And so then we go back, we draw the picture, write the knowns and unknowns, think about the concepts that we are applying, pick a formula, writing down all these processes. Then you go, you got the right answer. It works. When you are finished working through a problem, or even at steps throughout the problem, checking the student's understanding is an important part of it. Just because they say, okay, I got the answer, that's not the end of the story. We want to make sure that they understand what they've done. Oftentimes, as you're going through it, what's your question? Checking understanding, what do we do next? Instead of just going into the next step, give the student the opportunity to think about what needs to be done next. This is how they build that internal understanding. Have them rephrase a concept, paraphrase it, say it themselves. It gives them a chance to work out, because what makes a good teacher? Well, a teacher who teaches somebody else, right? So when they work these thoughts out and make them into words, rephrasing a concept or what have you, gives them a chance to work that understanding. Same thing, similarly, having them articulate what their obstacle to understanding was. What was it that had gotten you before? We got the solution, we've worked it out. What were we able to overcome? And let the student articulate that. That way they can see that obstacle and be more aware of that type of obstacle when they're working problems going forward. And one of the keys to effective teaching is take the pencil out of the teacher's hand and put it in the student's hand. So it's fine to demonstrate examples, but at the earliest opportunity that seems suitable, get them to work the problem out, have them walk through the steps, and just follow through. What do we do next? Why is this the right answer? Why would we not use Ohm's law for a light bulb? Time. I've got this biggest because this is really the biggest part. It's very easy for us as instructors and masters of our discipline to proceed on because we feel like we've effectively taught. But the best time to proceed is after the students had time to have effectively learned. When they finish a problem, and a lot of times you may have seen this, the student will finish a problem and then they'll just stare at the board or they'll stare at their paper and they're thinking it through, they're working it out. Don't rush them. Give them that time. Let them process that information. Let them come to their understanding before you move on to the next concept or another step. It's a very key part of it. Any questions so far? What if the students, you've taught it, you know that the way you explain it works because you explain it to 15 other students, but this student's not getting it. What then? Oftentimes you have to change your approach. How do you do that? Well, of course, you can always start with a different example. Give them a chance. It just takes them away from the problem that they're stuck on or the concept that they're stuck on and goes a slightly different route. That can be helpful. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll talk to them for a few moments and refamiliarize myself with where their background is. What is your discipline? What do you study? Getting a sense of, students will talk if you allow them. They'll just talk and then you'll find out all kinds of stuff that you need to know and stuff that you don't need to know. But what is their personal experience? What's their academic experience? What's their professional experience? A student last year that was a nurse. She was a certified nurse. She was going to school. I think she was RN or something like that. I'm sorry, nurse practitioner or something. I don't remember what she wanted to be. But I was able to, knowing that she'd get stuck on a problem and we'd circle it back to somewhere in the medical field and say, well, when you're doing an MRI, this, that, and the other, or when you're drawing blood, this, that, and the other. And those often helped her, as an example, helped her to bridge the gap and see it from a slightly different perspective, a little bit less of a physics perspective, a little more of an experience perspective. Have a peer give it a try. If there's somebody handy that can talk to the student, maybe there's another student in the area that they're buddies with. Let peer tutoring is a thing, right? We all know that. So we can be the greatest communicator in the world, but somehow or another, that peer is going to be able to explain that concept, and you'll hear them explain it, and you'll be like, oh, that's not exactly right. But what they're doing is enough for that student to grasp the concept that's been elucidated to the point. Redo checking understanding. Go more point by point. See if there's somewhere in the process that having them explain it and talk it out, maybe the understanding is not happening at some point there, and having them walk through it helps you and the student identify what that obstacle is. And finally, never give up. There's more than just these options here. You might phone a friend, the lifeline, right, from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You call a friend, hey, I'm having trouble with helping the student get this. Do you have any thoughts? Send me an email, what have you. At the end of the day, before they pack up and leave, what's their confidence level? Do they feel a renewed sense of confidence? Do they feel like they got what they came to get out of that experience? We want them to be able to leave the Physics Help Center feeling like Physics Help Center is useful. It's easy to get access to. The instructors, tutors there, you fellows and fellas, are effective at helping them get through whatever problems they have, and more likely they're going to come back. So, like I said, I come from a customer service background, and if, even a little bit thinking about students as the customer, not the customer's always right, it's customer satisfied. Did they get what they needed? They're going to behave just like a customer does. They go back to a place that they like. So, but the walkaway is, are they more confident? Do they feel like we were able to help them the way that they needed to be helped? So, if you're a student, you've been working with a student for 30 minutes or so, and you're still stuck, well, not stuck, but you finish, and the student starts packing up and they're ready to go, and you say, well, you got the body language, you got the spoken language, and most students will come away and they say, okay, I got this now, this makes sense, and I'm going to go ahead and go work on the rest of the problems or whatever. What about those students that say, no, I'm not there. I don't know. We got the problem done. But they don't have that confidence. They don't have that sense of ownership, I guess you might say, in where they are. Some indicators, I just can't understand the teacher. And you'll hear these students talk about this, and these become a little bit like red alerts, I guess you might say. Well, call for academic help. I just don't understand the teacher. Even after you've got the problems done and they're just commenting about a lecture, we got the problem done, but I don't have any confidence. They're not going to say it that way, but I don't really know or understand what's going on in class. Things that it's just, they still have this kind of beaten down demeanor as they, for their experience, go back to return to the wilderness of being on their own and trying to be successful in class or in lecture. And this is where learning styles and strengths, this is some of the later stuff in this document packet comes in. Where are we at? There we go. Examples of predicate phrases. Okay, predicates. So this questionnaire is, it's all right. Modality. Learning styles are a thing. They're not a dominant thing, but they can be an obstructive thing at times. There are many different style constructions. It's not just these four right here. There's ones that have to do with experience style. What is it? There's like a two-name thing that you can get, like a Bergstrom Mendelsohn number or something like that, and those different styles as far as like what kind of communicator you are, or whether you're like an alpha or beta or an alpha delta, whatever these combinations are. There's multiple different learning styles and personality styles and models and theories out there. As far as learning and feeling comfortable in the classroom, one that I generally, and everybody's heard me talk about these, is the visual, audio, read, write, and kinesthetic. And the reason that this is helpful once you get to this point is because the student is dealing with qualities that they don't yet fully understand about how they learn. And some of those are not easy because they're so many people think they're visual. And there's not wrong to think you're a visual learner. But visual input is a small factor, not a small factor, it's just one factor of many senses that we have that where we get information from the world around us. So if you're able to, if you spot this in a student and say, I see you're not getting this, maybe it's an opportunity for them to learn where they are currently in their learning styles. Oftentimes, the biggest challenges are going to be students who are either audio or like strong audio, strong kinesthetic, or some combination of these two. Helping them to understand that gives them a sense of ownership and confidence in themselves, and they see within them these characteristics that they relate to. And once they see that, they know that there's a path forward for their way of taking in information. It gives them that renewed sense of confidence, that new sense of, okay, maybe we'll try some of these techniques that will help and give them a chance to get back on track. It's not going to make them an A student necessarily, but it will give them more comfort and confidence in being a physics student, being able to navigate physics. So, and this document should be on your D2L if you copy it from me. And if not, go ahead and go get it from my D2L and import that component into your D2L. And that way it's there. And if you do come across students, they're just not feeling it. Maybe it's time to take that questionnaire, 5 minutes on the questionnaire, and then talk to them for a few minutes about where that puts them characteristically in those documents, and or punt them to me and I'll have that chat with them, whatever. But that's like one last bastion to help the students be able to feel like they can be successful in physics. So one thing, okay, so that's pretty much everything in here. I emailed a copy of this to everybody, so you have access to this PowerPoint if you'd like to go back through it, just kind of reflect on any of the concepts in there. You have this packet here. It's got a lot of good stuff in here. Some things, there's some things toward the back are mostly included. I was given this as a tutor when I was doing tutoring as an undergrad. But make sure you take some time and look at the communication stuff. That's the really effective part. That's the really key part of being successful as a tutor is, knowing and taking advantage of effective communication. Last remark is not only do having an effective Physics Help Center work, knowing about the Physics Help Center is important as well. Please make sure that you're telling your students that we have the Physics Help Center and that you help them know when it's available that they can get to it. We're going to try and get a rotating, I guess when I say an ad or advertisement up on the TVs sometime in the next week or two. That will also help supplement that, but it's important that we're encouraging the students to use the Physics Help Center. Even if they feel like they're doing all right, and you say, well, just in case you get stuck on a problem, the Physics Help Center, et cetera, et cetera. Let's work together to promote the Physics Help Center so that students take advantage of it and they have a successful experience in physics. All right. Thank you everybody for your time. Thanks for making it out here, and hope you think this was helpful for you.